In these directions, I will be showing you how to put together your myth folder. Your myth folder will become a very big grade in this class and will be collected at the end of May. There will be certain days in the month of May that you will be able to work on them. This is something you are not going to want to lose. I would strongly encourage you to keep this in the VIP section of your binder, or maybe in the pocket part of your binder, but you need to be responsible and bring it every single day, so that when I give you time, you will have it to work on. All right, here's what we're making. I'll show you a picture. The end result will look like this. On a manila folder, you will have a big picture on the front, and when you open it up, there will be little tiny pieces of squares that will represent each of the gods. So this will be our end result. These are the supplies that you need. Make sure you have a manila folder. You have 4 pieces of the white paper that are divided into 3 sections. You have the myth folder yellow sheet that has the directions and requirements. You will need a pencil, some Elmer's glue. Please hear me, not a glue stick. You may not use glue sticks. They will fall off. They don't stay on for some reason. So in theory, it is best for you to have Elmer's glue and a pair of scissors. Go ahead and have these supplies on your desk and let's begin. The first thing I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you glue the direction sheet on the back of the folder. Make sure you're not gluing on the front, because the front is where a very big picture will be going that you will be drawing. So please make sure you turn your folder over on the back and put 1 dot in each of the 4 corners. Let me repeat that. We are not dumping the bottle of glue on the back of the directions. We are putting a dot in each corner. When you put too much glue on, it becomes very difficult to glue down. So please trust me, as you can probably see if I zoom in, it is quite obvious that I only used a dot on each corner. Next, you can go ahead and open the folder and get the 4 pieces of white paper that are divided into 3 sections, and you will see that there is a long, kind of already identified for you, a long strip that we need to cut off because we want it to be, we want it to be just these 3 sections. So we need to get rid of that long strip. So go ahead and just cut straight down the side like I'm showing you here, and those will become scraps. Now, we are not going to trash my room during this process. You have been provided with, as you can see in this picture, a little yellow basket. Not hard to miss, it's yellow. It's a yellow basket. The scraps, as you can see what I'm doing here, are going to go inside the yellow trash can for the day. This little yellow basket will become your personal trash can so that we are not just throwing the scraps onto the floor, which somebody else then will have to pick up. So we're going to make our own little yellow trash can for the day. So go ahead and put your scraps there. Next, if you put, as I did in this picture, if you put all of the rectangles that you just cut out, if you put them all together, you will see that a couple of them are a bit longer than the rest. We need to fix this problem. Go ahead and take your scissors and you will cut along the side right here that I did to get rid of that extra part. And when you are done, it will look like this. So I have the scraps that I cut off right here, right there. I drew my line there. I cut that off, and now my picture looks like how you should be looking on your desk, okay? Let's take these scraps and put them in our yellow trash can. If at any point I'm going too fast, remember you can pause the video and continue with the directions when you are ready. So right now, let's take a second and pick up all scraps because we are done cutting. You can put your scissors away, put all scraps in the yellow trash can, and we can begin the next step. Now that you have your desk area all cleaned up, let's go ahead and start beginning to glue down the little flaps. Let me show you a picture of what we want to end up with, because sometimes it's easier to see that first. So by the time all is said and done, we will have a little square for each of the gods that are inside a folder that I will show you in a moment. But these are the squares. So what we're trying to do right now is we need to glue down 12 squares that you just got done cutting out. So let's take our rectangles and fold them all in half. So as you can see here, I took the rectangle piece of paper and I folded it in half. And I need 12 of these. So go ahead and pause the video and fold each rectangle piece in half so that you too have 12 little flaps that we can glue down. Pause the video. When you are done folding the rectangles and you have 12 squares, if you will, that now have a flap, go ahead and decide, it doesn't really matter, but you will put, as you can see here, 4 dots in each of the corners. And we, like, look at my dots, like I'm not kidding. Please do not dump the bottle of glue and feel that you need more. 4 dots is all you need. I cannot stress this enough. Don't be that student that I catch using anything else but 4 dots. Okay, so once you have that done, you are going to go ahead and glue that down on the inside. You're going to glue each of these squares down, as you can see in my folder that I have done. So you will have 12 squares that are all glued down, and they all have the flap, as you can see right here, that opens up. For example, as you can see, I am able to open up the flap. It is not completely glued down. It is only glued down on the back. So therefore, I can put information on the inside of the flap. Go ahead and pause the video and put 4 dots on each of the back of your 12 squares and glue them down inside the folder, remembering that this will be your ultimate goal, that when all is said and done, your folder should look like this. Next, as you saw in my previous picture, we need to write the names of the gods and goddesses on the 12 squares that you have inside the folder. But if I could bring your attention to the directions, I feel like we might need to take a minute and kind of read through these so that we can decide which names go on the 12 squares. So let's take a look at our directions. Number 1 says there are 13 gods and goddesses about which you will read in the myth folder. Go ahead and take your eyes to the back of the classroom. You will see a blue crate that is full of different colored folders that look like this one right here in my picture. These folders we will refer to as our myth folder. And inside the myth folder, you will find a section for each of the following gods and goddesses. If you make a reference, I'm going to take your eyes down to number 4. Number 4 has each god and goddess listed for you that is inside the myth folder. Each of them have their own section in the myth folder, but their names are spelled for you right here in number 4. This is so you can have the correct spelling on each of your 12 squares. Now, one might be thinking, if there are 13 gods and goddesses and only 12 squares, what are we going to do with that extra person? Or I should say God. Let's go back up to number 2 and continue reading. Choose your favorite god or goddess to decorate the cover of your myth folder. Because remember, on the back are these directions that we're looking at right now. So on the front, I would, if I were you, choose the god or goddess that you feel you could do a good job making a big illustration of him or her. So, for example, if you cannot draw people well, perhaps you should choose a god or goddess that has a lot of symbolism that is easy to draw. My favorite person to draw, since I cannot draw at all, I pick Aphrodite because it is easy for me to draw clouds, ocean, wind, because that's where she came from. It's easy to draw hearts and arrows and all kinds of symbols that represent her. So I probably would not choose to draw Aphrodite on the front of my cover because it would look like a stick figure. Instead, I would decorate the front of my cover with all of her symbols and other pictures that represent who she is that I am able to draw. So you can, if you are not a person who draws, you can outsmart this assignment by focusing on the symbolism. If you are a student that can draw, then this is your time to shine. Have fun with the front of your folder. Pick a god or goddess that you can actually draw well. And I'm sure yours will be one that I ask to keep for an example for next year. Okay, let's continue. Since you've picked your favorite god or goddess for the front of your cover, you now, if I were you, I would take my pencil. I picked Aphrodite, so I'm going to cross Aphrodite out because I know that she's already been used. I will then begin with my first white square inside my folder, and I will write Zeus's name at the bottom. So I would write the name down at the bottom, like you can see here on the white square. Don't write the name like this, because you are supposed to have an illustration on the cover of each flap. So writing the name that big would be wrong. You need to write the name very small, as you can see here on the example. Write the name at the bottom of the square, tiny, not big. Pause the video and go ahead and do this. As you can see, I have an illustration for Aphrodite on the cover. This is why the names need to go at the bottom of each white square. When I open this flap up, there will be a blank area like this that I will be able to type additional information about Aphrodite inside. Next, on your folder is a tab. In the Manila folder, all Manila folders come with a tab. Please find the tab and let's write your name. Please don't write Zeus or Aphrodite. You are not them. I need you to write your name, your first and last name that I call you in class. So go ahead and pause the video and do that. All right, we have our name on our Manila folder. We have our 12 squares glued down. We have a name on each one. The remaining 12 after you picked one for the cover. Let's continue. Okay. What goes on the inside of each of the 12 squares? So take your eyes to number 3. We already did A, so I'm going to cross off A. We wrote the names of each god or goddess down using the correct spelling, like I had pointed out to you in number 4. Let's look at B. On the front of each flap, illustrate a picture of the god or goddess that represents him or her. So for example, I did show you the Aphrodite one. I drew a bunch of hearts because she is the goddess of love. So I thought that that would be kind of easy for me to draw. Then, and I have her name at the bottom. Okay, so that's A and B. So I'm going to go ahead and cross off B. Let's take a look at C. Inside the flap, when you open it up, inside the flap, you are required to have the following pieces of information. First, you need to have the god or goddess's symbols. So if I open up the white square that I used for Aphrodite, you can see that I have several of her symbols. I have an apple, and I have some seashells, and I wrote down the word symbols, and then I listed them all. One might ask, how did you know what her symbols were? Aha. If you would refer to, please, if you refer to the myth folder, you will find all of that information inside. For example, I would open up the folder when I was ready, and I would go and find Aphrodite's section, and I would read all about her. Then, hopefully, in there, I would find what her symbols are. If for some reason you are unable to find what her symbols are, then I would just leave that blank for a while, and then you can go on to the next. You might read about another god or goddess in somebody else's section, or you might read it in a myth that we will be doing in class throughout the month of May. You can also learn about gods and goddesses in any of the movies that we are watching. So remember, you'll be picking up lots of information that will go inside your Manila folder as the unit progresses throughout the month of May. So I have the first one, symbols, got it. The second piece of information that I need to have is the god or goddess's domain, which means what they rule over. So in the folder, when I was reading about Aphrodite, I found that her domain was love and beauty. So as you can see, I have it written right there. 3 asks you to have 3 adjectives that will describe your god and goddess. So I picked 3 that I felt were appropriate for Aphrodite. Then the next one is asking you to have a 3 to 4 sentence summary of the information that you read in that god or goddess's section inside the myth folder. Please take your pencil and underline specific. I don't want anybody in here to feel that once you read a summary, you can write down, my god or goddess is really important. He or she is in charge of many things. My god or goddess sometimes does bad things. Notice that I am keeping it very general. A summary like that could pretty much be used for any of the gods or goddesses. I am hoping that you know us well enough by now that if you think you're going to fool me by writing a summary that anybody could write if they hadn't actually read it, that I am not going to be able to find those people. Please know that when I read your summary, I'm going to be looking for evidence that you actually read the god or goddess's passage. I will be making sure that you have specific information in there that you would only know if you had actually taken the time to read the passage. For example, if I look at Aphrodite's flap that I made as an example for you, I would encourage you to make the 4 pieces of information that you have to have quite obvious. As you can see here, I used a bold heading and I put semicolons. That is me trying to make it very obvious to the person grading my paper that I have all 4 areas listed and included. So you too might want to maybe put down these 4 sections on the inside of each of your 12 squares. That way you won't forget that you have to have these 4 pieces of information for every single white square that you have inside your folder. So I wrote down symbol, domain, 3 adjectives, and summary. If you want to pause the video and write those 4 things on the inside of each of your 12 squares, you can, or you can just do it as you go. That is fine too, but don't forget to include all 4. If you want, you may pause the video and read my summary of Aphrodite to see how specific I am with the summary. That will give you an expectation as far as what you should be doing in all 12 of your squares. The very last thing that you need to include is another additional illustration in color. You don't want the inside of your flap to just be plain and white with just some pieces of information. Please look at my expectation for the inside of each of your flaps. Notice how I drew a picture on the top part of the flap and then put all of my information on the bottom half of my flap, of my square. So make sure that you are adding illustrations and pictures that show effort. I drew a picture of a cloud and wind and an ocean because that's where Aphrodite came from. I then, on the bottom, drew pictures of symbols that represent her and also included all of the 4 pieces of information that I have to have. You too should try to work on these for each of your 12 squares. All right, now that I have given you all the step-by-step directions, if something did not make sense, remember, that's why we make these videos. You can always rewind, watch a certain part that you were confused about again, or come and ask me and I can show you right up here at my desk. Again, let me just show you a picture of our end result. So as you can see, the cover of the folder has a big illustration of whichever god or goddess you chose, and the inside will have our 12 squares representing each of the gods or goddesses that are written at the bottom of your directions in number 4. When you have done all of this, please go ahead and make sure that you twist the cap closed on the glue. You put your scissors and glue back in the purple basket. You take the yellow trash can and empty it in a trash can remember, look on the floor. Even if there's scraps that are not yours, just be the better person and pick them up. You'll feel good about yourself throughout the day. And throw all pieces of paper away. Take your manila folder, put it inside your binder so that it is safe for the day. Always bring your manila folder to class. You had to bring your Tangerine book, your Fire from the Rock book every single day. So this now is the new resource that you will need to bring to English class for the rest of the year every single day. You never know when I'm going to give you time to work on it. If there is extra time, feel free to go to the back of the room, get a myth folder, and you may begin working or reading about one of the gods or goddesses. Perhaps you want to work on the front of the cover. You may also do that. These folders are not to be worked on at home. This is a class assignment that I want to make sure you're doing on your own. So we will be working on these inside of class only. So if your period is a longer lunch period and you have extra time right now, you can begin working on this. If you are a shorter period due to the 2-hour delay start, then you probably should be wrapping things up and putting everything away for the bell to ring.